Hello, and welcome back to Horror Drift Stories. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy the horror drift stories that creep in during the dead of night, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare. Relax your mind. Let the outside world fade away. And let's begin. Story one, I guess I was just tired of fighting. That is the easiest way to explain it, even though it does not fully cover what I was feeling. It was not only the arguments, it was the same small fights, again and again, every day, until they started to feel like a wall between us. It was the cold silence after those fights. It was the way we could sit in the same room and still feel like strangers. It was the kind of distance that slowly eats a marriage from the inside. The bedroom had been dead for a long time, too, but it was not just about sex. People always hear that and think it means one thing, but for me, it was more than that. I missed being close to her. I missed the feeling of her wanting to touch me because she wanted to, not because she felt bad for me. Not because it was a routine, and not because she was trying to keep peace for one more night. I wanted to feel wanted again. I wanted the old us back. The us that laughed for no reason. The us that could not stay away from each other. The us that could make a normal Tuesday night feel like the best night of our lives. We got married young. I was 21, and she was 20. Back then, we were crazy about each other. She used to grab my hand in grocery stores. She used to lean against me while we watched movies. She used to call me just to tell me something small that happened during her day. Sometimes we would stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning, talking about everything and nothing at the same time. That was what I loved most about her. I know a lot of men say they fell in love with a woman's personality because it sounds better than saying anything else, but with her, it was true. She was funny without trying. She was sharp. She had this way of bouncing off my thoughts like we were playing a game only the two of us understood. I could say one little thing, and she would take it somewhere completely different. And suddenly, we would be laughing so hard that our stomachs hurt. God, I missed that. The world felt lighter then, brighter, like life had opened a door just for us. We had that first year in our little place together. It was not much, but to us, it felt like a palace. The kitchen was too small. The heater made strange knocking sounds at night. The carpet had stains from people who lived there before us. But we were happy there. We could have filled whole scrapbooks with the memories we made in that place. Late night takeout on the floor, cheap wine in plastic cups, dancing in the kitchen while dinner burned on the stove, rainy Sundays under blankets. But we never made those scrapbooks. We let those memories fade. We let time carry them away. Then the arguments began. At first, they were about money. That made sense, I guess. We were young, broke, and trying to survive on our own. We both worked, but bills always seemed to come faster than paychecks. Rent, groceries, gas, car repairs, electricity, insurance. It felt like life was always standing behind us with its hand out. Sometimes we fought because we were scared. Sometimes because we were tired. Sometimes because we had no one else to take it out on. Then the fights became smaller and more stupid. I would forget to put the toilet seat down. She would leave crumbs in the bed. I would leave my work boots by the door. She would forget to switch the laundry over, and our clothes would smell damp. Things that should not have mattered started to matter too much. Tiny things became proof that one of us did not care. That was the problem. It was never only about the toilet seat or the crumbs. It was about feeling unseen. It was about both of us silently asking, do you even think about me anymore? Still, we loved each other enough back then to keep the fights from becoming who we were. We still went on dates. We still went to movies and held hands in the theater. We still ate dinner at cheap restaurants and laughed about how bad the service was. We still took walks and sat in parks and talked about the future like it was something we were building together. For a while, when people saw us in public, we looked like a happy couple. And back then, I do not think it was fake. It was not a mask yet. It was just us trying. It was us loving each other through the hard parts. The thing that gave me hope was that we could still talk. Even after a bad week, even after a fight, there were nights when we would find our way back to each other. We would sit on the couch, and one of us would say something small, and somehow the conversation would stretch for hours. That made me believe we were okay. As long as we still had that, I thought we could survive anything. Then I got promoted at work. At first, it felt like a blessing. More money meant the bills did not scare us as much. It meant food in the fridge, the lights staying on, and a little breathing room. My wife seemed proud of me, really proud. She hugged me when I told her. She smiled in that way I had not seen in a while, and for a moment I thought, maybe this is the start of things getting better. But the promotion came with longer hours, much longer hours. I started working 12-hour days at job sites, sometimes more. I left before the sun was fully up and came home after dinner was already cold. On a good day, I could kiss her forehead in the morning before I left. On a lucky night, I would make it home in time to kiss her goodnight before she fell asleep. That was when the bedroom started to die. If I was in the mood, she was too tired or already asleep. If she wanted me, I was exhausted and could barely keep my eyes open. We tried to plan certain nights for intimacy. For a short time, that worked. Then, even that started to feel like another job on a calendar. Something scheduled, something forced, something we both slowly stopped trying to protect. Months turned into years. 9 years passed after that promotion, and I watched my marriage fall apart one piece at a time. We lost touch in every way a couple can lose touch. We stopped talking deeply. We stopped touching without a reason. We stopped asking each other questions that mattered. We became two people sharing a house, sharing bills, sharing a last name, but not really sharing a life. But I never stopped loving her. That was the worst part. It would have been easier if I hated her. It would have been easier if I could point to one awful thing and say, that is why this ended. But it was not like that. It was slow, quiet, painful, like watching someone you love walk farther and farther into fog while you stand there calling their name. For a long time, I held on to hope. I held on to the woman I married. I kept looking for chances to fix things. Another date night, another talk, another apology, another small moment that might remind us of who we used to be. But after a while, numbness starts to set in. That scared me more than the anger ever did. Anger at least means you still care. But indifference is different. The first time I realized there was a part of me that did not know if our marriage survived or not, I felt terrified. I did not want to become that person. I did not want to stop caring. So I kept trying. By our 9th anniversary, I knew something had to change. I got the day off work and decided to surprise her. While she was at her job, I turned our living room into a little indoor picnic. I put a video of a cozy fireplace on the TV. I lit candles around the room. I cooked her favorite food. I even drove out to a florist to buy her favorite flowers. Not the cheap kind from a grocery store. Real flowers. The kind you have to ask for. The kind that cost too much. But you buy them anyway, because you want the person to know they matter. I placed them in a vase right in the middle of the blanket. By the time she came home, everything was ready. I stood there, nervous, like I was 21 again. She opened the door, stepped inside, and looked at the setup for maybe 2 seconds. Then she sighed. "Oh my God," she said. "I am so tired right now. I'm sorry I can't do this." She walked past me like I was not even there and went straight upstairs to our bedroom. I just stood there. I did not shout. I did not follow her. I did not even know what I would say if I did. I felt something inside me break as I packed up the food, blew out the candles, and folded the blanket. I put her favorite dinner in the fridge and threw away the little pieces of myself I had placed into that room. That night, I slept on the couch. Well, I say I slept, but I barely did. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, turning from one side to the other while my mind fought with itself. Part of me wanted to go upstairs and wake her. I wanted to demand an apology. I wanted her to understand how much she had hurt me. I wanted her to see that I was still trying. But another part of me was tired of always being the one who started the conversation. I knew how it would go. I would tell her I was hurt, and somehow, by the end, I would be the problem. She would say I was being dramatic. She would say she was exhausted. She would say I always picked the worst times to talk. Then she would be angry with me for waking her up, and my pain would become another burden she had to carry. So I stayed on the couch. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. At first, I watched random videos, reels, TikToks, anything to turn my brain off. But no matter how many videos I watched, my thoughts kept coming back. My marriage, my wife, the picnic, her face when she looked at it, the way she walked past me. Then I saw the ad. It felt like my phone had heard the thoughts inside my head. The video showed smiling couples. Soft music played in the background. A warm voice asked, "Do you feel like you have lost touch with your partner? Have you grown apart? Do you feel like your marriage is slipping away? Let the bridge help you reconnect. We bridge the gap in your marriage for a brighter tomorrow. First appointments are free for a limited time." I watched it twice. Then I clicked. The website looked clean and professional, but also strangely empty. There were pictures of happy couples holding hands. There was a photo of a modern office building with shiny windows. There were words like healing, connection, restoration, and emotional repair. But it was hard to understand what they actually did. At the bottom of the page, there was a button. Schedule your first appointment today. No cost for first-time visitors. That part got me. Free, maybe it was desperation, but it felt like fate. It felt like the universe had placed that ad in front of me because I needed it. I clicked the button and booked an appointment for that Friday. The moment I submitted the form, I felt a strange calm. For the first time in weeks, I felt like there was a plan. I finally fell asleep on the couch in the early hours of the morning. Before work the next day, I went upstairs and gently shook my wife awake. She opened her eyes, annoyed and half asleep. I told her what I had done. She was not happy. She told me she did not want counseling. She said we did not need strangers in our business. She said I should have talked to her first. I told her I had been trying to talk for years. I did not have time to argue because I had to leave for work, but that did not stop us from texting back and forth all day. She resisted. I begged. She got angry. I stayed calm. I told her I could not keep living like this. I told her I needed us to at least try. By the end of the day, she agreed, but only barely. The rest of that week was quiet. We saw each other in passing, but we barely spoke. She kept her distance, and I did not push. I kept telling myself Friday would help. I prayed that whatever the bridge was, it would bring back our conversations. Maybe it could remind her why she loved me. Maybe it could remind me why I kept holding on. Friday finally came. We drove to the address from the website and parked in front of the office building. It looked exactly like the picture, maybe even cleaner. The concrete had no cracks. The walls had no stains. The parking lines looked freshly painted. Even the windows looked too clear, like they had been polished minutes before we arrived. It should have made me feel safe. Instead, it made me feel uneasy. Still, I told myself that a clean building meant professionals. It meant money. It meant they knew what they were doing. We walked inside. The lobby was quiet and bright. A receptionist sat behind a smooth white desk. She smiled at us in a way that looked practiced. "Good afternoon," she said. "How can I help you?" I told her we had an appointment. She slid a clipboard toward us. "Just fill these out, and someone will be with you shortly." My wife glanced at the papers, then pushed them toward me. "You do it," she muttered. "This was your idea." I did not argue. I sat down and started filling out the forms. At first it seemed normal: name, address, phone number, insurance information. But then the questions became more personal. Rate your marital satisfaction from 1 to 10. How often do you experience physical intimacy with your partner? How would you describe your current communication? What emotions do you wish your partner expressed more often? What are your main goals for this relationship? I paused at that last one. I wanted to write something simple, but the pen felt heavy in my hand. Finally, I wrote that I wanted my wife to be happy again. I wanted her to feel close to me again. I wanted her to love me the way she used to. I handed the clipboard back. The receptionist typed something into her computer. The clicking of her nails against the keyboard sounded too loud in the empty room. That was when I noticed we were alone. No other couples, no patients, no voices from the back. Nothing. Just me, my wife, and the receptionist. The silence pressed against my ears. After a few minutes, a door opened at the back of the lobby, and a man in a white lab coat stepped out. He was tall, neat, and smiling like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. He greeted us warmly and introduced himself as the doctor. He said we were in good hands. Then, he looked at my wife. "I would like to speak with you privately first," he said. "It will only take a few minutes." My wife looked at me. For the first time that day, I saw nervousness in her face. I gave her a small nod, trying to reassure her, even though I did not feel sure myself. She followed him into the back. The door closed behind them. I waited. A few minutes passed, then 30, then an hour. I went to the receptionist and asked how much longer it would be. She smiled the same empty smile. "Just a few more minutes, hon. Don't worry." So I sat back down. Another hour passed. Then another. By then, I was angry and scared. I kept checking the time. I kept looking at the door. I kept asking, and the receptionist kept giving me the same answer. Just a few more minutes. After almost 3.5 hours, she finally looked up from her screen. "Looks like the session just finished," she said. I stood up, relieved. Then she asked, "Will that be cash or card today?" I stared at her. Cash or card? The website said the first appointment was free. She nodded. The appointment is free. That was the paperwork. The procedure itself comes to $3,000 even. My stomach dropped. Procedure? I said. What procedure? Before she could answer, the back door opened. My wife came out first. The doctor walked behind her with both hands resting on her shoulders, guiding her like she could not guide herself. Her eyes were half open, but not in a sleepy way. Her eyelids hung loosely, like they belonged to a doll. Her face had no expression. Her jaw was slightly open. She looked alive and empty at the same time. My blood went cold. "What did you do to her?" I asked. The doctor raised one hand calmly. "Please take a seat. Let me explain." I did not sit. He reached into the pocket of his coat and pulled out a small remote. Then he pressed a button. My wife changed instantly. Her face lit up. Her eyes widened. A huge smile spread across her face, the kind of smile I had not seen from her in years. She looked at me, and for one impossible second, I saw the woman I had married. "Oh my gosh," she said, rushing toward me. "I missed you so much. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever." She threw her arms around my neck and held me tightly. I froze. The doctor stepped closer. "May I?" he asked. Before I could answer, he gently moved my wife's hair away from the side of her head. There, just behind her ear, was a small metal implant pressed into her skin. "Neuralink," he said proudly. "We fixed her." I stared at him. "Fixed her? What the hell does that mean?" The doctor tilted his head like I was being difficult. "This is what you requested. In your paperwork, you said you wanted her to be happy again." "Happy with me again," I said. He gestured toward my wife, who was still holding on to me. And now she is. My wife squeezed me even tighter. I felt sick. "So what?" I asked. "She is just going to be like this forever?" "No, no," the doctor said quickly. "Of course not. You control how she feels. That is what the remote is for." He pressed another button. My wife's arms dropped from my neck. Her shoulders started to shake. Then she began to cry. "I just love you so much," she sobbed. "I miss you so much. I never want to leave you." The doctor looked at me like he had proven a point. "See?" he said. "The emotional connection is restored." Then, as if none of this was strange at all, he turned toward the receptionist. "So," he said, "cash or card?" What was I supposed to do? The operation had already been done. My wife had already been changed. I was scared, confused, angry, and ashamed, but I paid. I handed over my card with shaking fingers and signed the receipt. Before we left, the doctor gave me the remote and explained the settings. It had every emotion I could think of: happiness, sadness, calm, fear, anger, disgust, surprise, peace, love, patience, excitement, desire, sleepiness. At the time, I was horrified, but not horrified enough to throw it away. That is the part I hate admitting. On the drive home, I kept her set to desire. She sat close to me in the passenger seat. She touched my arm. She smiled at me like we were young again. She whispered things that made my chest tighten and my hands grip the steering wheel. For the first time in years, she wanted me. Or at least, she acted like she did. When we got home, we fell into each other like no time had passed at all. For a few hours, I let myself believe I had gotten my wife back. But late that night, when I was exhausted and she still wanted to keep going, I pressed sleepiness. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes closed. Her body went limp beside me. It was like someone had switched her off. I shook her gently. Nothing. I shook her harder. Still nothing. For one terrible moment, I thought I had killed her. Then I saw her chest rising and falling. Slow, steady. A few minutes later, she started snoring softly. I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling. I should have gone back the next morning. I should have called the police. I should have done anything except what I did. When morning came, she was still asleep. I picked up the remote and pressed calm, then patient. Her eyes opened slowly. "Good morning, my sweet pea," she said, smiling softly. "Did you sleep well? Did you have any dreams?" I almost cried. She had not asked me something like that in years. I pressed peaceful, then loving. She wrapped herself around me, and we stayed like that for almost an hour before I had to leave for work. I kissed her goodbye at the door. Before I left, I set her to happy. All day, my phone kept buzzing with messages from her. "I am so happy I have you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. I cannot wait until you come home. I miss your face. I love you so much." Each message made me feel warm at first. Wanted. Needed. Loved. I told myself this was healing. I told myself maybe the implant was just helping her reach emotions she had buried. Maybe she still loved me underneath it all, and the device was only clearing the fog. That night, when I came home late, she was waiting in the living room with a huge smile. "I'm so happy to see you," she said. "Tell me all about your day." And I did. For the first time in years, she listened to me like I was the most important person in the world. From then on, she was completely in the palm of my hand. If we watched a sad movie, I made her cry. If I came home angry about work, I made her angry with me. If I wanted peace, I made her calm. If I wanted affection, I made her loving. If I wanted intimacy, I made her desire me. For a while, it felt like everything had been fixed. There were no more fights, no more cold silences, no more rolled eyes, no more excuses. She smiled when I came home. She kissed me when I left. She asked about my day. She held my hand. She said all the words I had been waiting years to hear. But slowly, I began to notice something. Every emotion she felt was about me. She was happy because of me. She was sad because she missed me. She was angry because I was angry. She was calm because I wanted calm. She never talked about her own day anymore. She never mentioned her friends. She never complained about work. She never brought up her family unless I asked, and even then, her answers somehow turned back to me. At first, I tried not to think about it. Then I could not ignore it. One afternoon, I called her job. I told myself I just wanted to check in. I wanted to know if she was acting normal at work. Her boss answered. When I told him who I was, he gave a strange laugh. "Oh," he said, "so you're the husband she can't stop talking about. You really have her wrapped around your finger, huh?" Before I could ask what he meant, he handed the phone to my wife. She answered in a bright, singing voice. "Hello, love of my life." I felt something twist in my stomach. That night, I started testing her. I asked her simple questions. "What is your favorite food?" She smiled. "Whatever you're in the mood for, of course." "What makes you angry?" "When you're angry, obviously." "What do you enjoy doing?" "Talking to you." "What else would I enjoy? What do you want for yourself?" She blinked at me, still smiling. "I want you to be happy." I sat there looking at her, and for the first time, the truth became impossible to avoid. I had not gotten my wife back. I had gotten a version of her built around me. A shell. A mirror. An echo. There was no real conversation anymore. Not really. Every word she spoke circled back to me. Every smile belonged to me. Every tear was for me. Every thought seemed to begin and end with me. And somehow, that felt even lonelier than the silence we had before. For months, I kept her mostly unhappy, peaceful, or calm. I told myself I was being kind by not using the other settings as much. I told myself it was better than fighting, better than pain, better than losing her. But every day, I felt more like I was living with a ghost that looked like my wife. I thought about going back to the bridge. I thought about demanding they undo it. I even drove past the office building once, but I did not stop. I was afraid they would tell me there was no way to reverse it. I was afraid they would charge me more money. I was afraid of what my wife might be like if the device was removed. And, if I am being honest, I was afraid of being alone again. So we kept going. We pretended everything was normal. Then our 10th anniversary came. I got home from work very late that night. It was almost midnight, and I was exhausted. My whole body hurt. All I wanted was to take off my shoes, fall into bed, and sleep until morning. But when I opened the front door, I stopped. There she was in the living room. She had set up a picnic, a blanket on the floor, candles, my favorite food, my favorite beer, a little video of a fireplace playing on the TV. It was almost exactly like the picnic I had made for her 1 year before. She stood beside it with a proud smile, waiting for me to react. "Happy anniversary," she said. "I did all of this just for you." I stared at the blanket. I should have felt touched. Instead, I felt hollow. Still, I did not want to be cruel. I took off my jacket and sat with her on the floor. I picked up my beer and took a sip. My eyes burned from tiredness. She sat across from me, smiling too wide. "Tell me all about your day," she said. Before I could answer, she kept going. "I thought about you all day. Do you like the picnic? I wanted tonight to be perfect for you. You are my whole world. Happy anniversary, sweet pea." Her words came at me one after another. Loving, bright, empty. I sat there on the blanket, staring at the floor, feeling like my mind had gone numb. I'd spent years begging for her love, and now that I had it, it did not feel like love at all. It felt like something wearing love as a mask. Then one question pushed its way into my mind. I looked up at her. "Honey," I said carefully. "Yes, sweet love of my life?" she answered. The words should have warmed me. They made my skin crawl. I held the beer in my hand and stared at her face. The question rolled around in my head, heavy and dangerous. I was scared to ask it because I already knew deep down that I would hate the answer. But I asked anyway. "Why do you love me?" She did not pause. She did not think. There was no confusion in her eyes. No memory. No feeling moving behind them. She only smiled at me. And then she said the words that ruined whatever was left of my life. "Because you told me to, of course." Story 2. Last May, search and rescue teams working deep inside the Appalachian National Forest found something strange in a narrow crack between two rocks. It was a smartphone, broken almost beyond recognition, stuck in a tight crevice nearly 100 feet below a steep cliff. The screen was shattered, the metal frame was bent, and the back of the phone was scratched like it had been dragged across stone. But the phone had been inside a heavy-duty OtterBox case, and somehow that case protected the memory inside. When investigators recovered the phone, they found several audio recordings saved in the storage. Most of them were damaged by static, wind, and loud shaking sounds, But the final recording was clear enough to understand. The voice belonged to a man named Mark. He had gone missing during a solo hiking trip in the Appalachians, and no trace of him was ever found. This is what the phone recorded during its final hours. My battery is at 15% now. I do not know if anyone will ever hear this. I do not know if this phone will ever be found, or if it will just die out here with me. But I have to say something. I have to leave something behind. Because if I disappear tonight, I do not want people thinking I simply got lost, slipped, or wandered too far into the woods by accident. My name is Mark. I'm from Philadelphia, and I came out here because I needed a break from everything. Work, noise, traffic, bills, people, all of it. I thought a few days in the Appalachian Mountains would clear my head. I thought I knew what I was doing. I had hiked before. I had good boots, a map, a small tent, a water filter, a power bank, and enough food for several days. I wasn't some reckless tourist with no idea how dangerous the wilderness can be. But I made one mistake, one stupid mistake. On the third day of my trip, I decided to leave the marked trail. At first, it didn't feel dangerous. The morning was quiet and cool. The air smelled like damp earth and pine needles. The main trail had been easy, maybe too easy, and I wanted real silence. I wanted to get away from other hikers, away from campsites, away from anything that reminded me of people. So when I saw a faint animal path leading between the trees, I followed it. I told myself I would only go a little way in, maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. I even marked the turn in my mind, thinking I could easily come back the same way. But the forest swallowed me faster than I expected. The trees became thicker. The ground changed from soft dirt to roots, wet leaves, and sharp stones hidden under moss. The air became colder, even though it was still afternoon. The branches above me locked together so tightly that they blocked out most of the sunlight. It felt like walking under a roof made of leaves and shadows. After a while, I pulled out my phone to check my location, and that was when I saw there was no service, no bars, nothing. I laughed at first, because that happens in the mountains. Everyone knows that. But the deeper I walked, the more wrong the place felt. The woods did not feel empty. They felt full, like something was standing still all around me, watching without moving. The forest floor had a strange smell, too. Not just wet leaves or mud. It smelled sour, old, and heavy. Like something dead had been buried under the ground and left there for years. Every few steps, my boots sank into black mud that clung to them like tar. I kept hearing tiny sounds in the trees, but when I stopped, everything stopped with me. Then I saw the first symbol. It was carved into the trunk of an oak tree at about chest height. 3 straight cuts crossed through one curved line. The cuts were fresh. Sap was still leaking from the wound in the bark, thick and shiny, almost like the tree was bleeding. I stood there staring at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it was just some hiker's mark or maybe something made by a ranger. But it did not look like a trail marker. It looked like a warning. A few minutes later, I found another one. Same shape, same deep knife cuts, same fresh sap. Then another, then another. Every time I turned, I saw one carved into a tree, always facing the direction I was walking. That was when I finally stopped. I remember standing there with my hands on my knees, trying to catch my breath. The forest was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I looked back the way I had come, but the trees all looked the same now. The faint path had vanished behind me. There were no signs, no colored trail marks, no broken branches I recognized, just trees, fog, and those carved symbols. Then I heard a twig snap. It came from behind me, somewhere between the trees. I turned so fast I almost slipped. I stared into the woods, waiting for a deer or a bear or even another hiker to step out. Nothing moved. The branches were still. The fog was low, sliding between the trunks like smoke. Then I heard breathing. It was not the breath of an animal. I know what animals sound like. I've heard deer snort and bears huff in videos. This was different. This was slow, heavy, and rough, like a person breathing through a damaged throat. It came in long pulls, in and out, just far enough away that I could not see who or what was making it. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. The breathing stopped. That scared me more than if it had continued. A few minutes after that, gray clouds started gathering over the peaks. I could see them through gaps in the trees, thick and low, almost pressing down on the mountain. The fog came in quickly after that. It did not roll in like normal fog. It crept in, thin at first, then thicker, wrapping around the roots and rocks until the forest floor disappeared under a pale gray blanket. I knew I had to get back to the main trail. I turned around and started walking in the direction I thought I had come from. I kept my eyes on the trees, looking for anything familiar, but the symbols were everywhere now. I saw them on both sides of me, sometimes carved high, sometimes low, sometimes so deep the bark had been split open. They repeated with a strange pattern, like someone had placed them there carefully. At first, I thought they were helping me find a way out. Then I started to feel like they were guiding me deeper in, or maybe they were telling me I had already crossed into someone's land. My heart started pounding harder with every step. In a city, there is always noise around you. Cars, voices, doors, sirens, music, something. But out here, every sound felt huge. Every step I took seemed to crack through the forest like a gunshot. Every branch I pushed aside snapped back too loud. I started walking softer, but that only made me more aware of how quiet everything else was. I took out my paper map because my phone had no signal, and GPS was useless. I tried to find the ridge line, the stream, anything that matched where I was, but the place around me did not make sense. The map showed trails, old logging roads, water lines, and elevation marks. But the part I seemed to be standing in was almost blank. No trail, no warning, no marked camp area. It was like this section of the mountain had been forgotten or left out on purpose. That was when I saw smoke. It was faint at first, just a thin gray line rising behind one of the ridges. I stood still and watched it for a while, hoping it was from another hiker's campfire. I told myself someone must be there, maybe a ranger, maybe a hunter, maybe someone who knew the area and could lead me back. But I also knew something was wrong. I had read the signs at the trailhead. Camping was not allowed in this restricted section. The area had been closed off for some kind of safety reason. I had ignored the warning because I thought it was just about rough terrain or protected land. Now, looking at that smoke rising through the fog, I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. Every instinct told me to go the other way. But I was tired. My legs were shaking. The fog had ruined my sense of direction. I had been walking for hours, and I did not know if turning away from the smoke would lead me back to the trail or deeper into the mountains. So I did the thing I regret most. I walked toward it. The smoke led me over a low ridge and down into a hollow where the trees grew even closer together. The air there felt dead. No wind, no birds, no insects. The only sound was the wet crunch of my boots and the soft crackle of a fire somewhere ahead. Then I saw the trailer. It was old, rusted, and half hidden under black plastic tarps tied down with rope. The windows were covered from the inside. The tires had sunk into the mud so deep that the trailer looked like it had been sitting there for years. Around it was a fence made of crooked wooden posts and barbed wire. But the fence was not built like something meant to keep people out. It looked like it was meant to keep something in. The smoke was coming from a metal barrel near the trailer. A small fire burned inside it, giving off a bitter smell that made my throat tighten. Around the clearing were piles of junk, broken tools, plastic buckets, bones from small animals, and pieces of clothing hanging from branches like wet flags. I crouched behind a tree and looked closer. That was when I saw the shoes. There were hiking boots, sneakers, sandals, and one bright red running shoe lying near the fence. Some were old and covered in dirt. Others looked newer. Beside them were backpacks, torn jackets, water bottles, a cracked camera, and scraps of clothing. They were not arranged like trash. They were set out like trophies. My blood went cold. I had read stories about missing hikers in the Appalachians before I came here. People who vanished on side trails. People who were last seen near remote ridges. People whose cars were found, but whose bodies never were. At the time, those stories felt distant, like scary internet posts people shared to make the mountains seem more mysterious. Now, I was standing in the middle of the answer. This was not a campsite. This was where people ended up. I wanted to leave right then, but before I could move, I heard a metal lock click from inside the trailer. The sound was small, but in that silence it felt as loud as a gun being cocked. I ducked behind the wide trunk of an oak tree and held my breath. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I checked the screen again, even though I already knew what it would say. No service. The trailer door opened with a long, rusty groan. A man stepped out. He was tall, thin, and older than I expected, but there was nothing weak about him. His shoulders were narrow, his clothes were dirty, and his face was covered by a filthy rag tied around the lower half of his head. His hair hung in greasy gray strings around his eyes. He was not carrying a rifle or a knife. He was carrying a woodsman's axe. The handle was dark from use. The blade looked dull in some places and freshly cleaned in others. He held it like it was part of his arm, loose and easy, as if he had carried it every day of his life. He stepped down from the trailer and stood still. Then he sniffed the air. I am not saying that as a joke. He actually lifted his head slightly and breathed in through the rag like an animal catching a scent. He turned his head left, then right, and then he looked down at the ground. He moved across the clearing without making a sound. Not like a normal man walking over rocks, roots, and trash. He moved smoothly, like he knew every inch of that place. He stopped at the exact spot where I had been standing only minutes before. He bent down and touched the mud. Then he looked straight toward the tree I was hiding behind. My body locked up. This was not bad luck. This was not a random meeting. He had known I was there. Maybe he had been following me from the moment I crossed those carved symbols. Maybe the breathing I heard in the forest was him. Maybe the symbols were not warnings for hikers. Maybe they were his boundary markers. He started walking toward me slowly. He dragged the axe blade along the bark of the trees as he came, making a dry scraping sound that made my teeth hurt. He did not rush. He did not call out. He did not ask who I was. He already knew enough. I wanted to run, but my feet felt stuck in the mud. My mind was screaming at me to move, to do anything, but my body would not listen. I could see his eyes above the rag, cold, pale, and wide open. And the worst part was that he looked happy. He was smiling under that dirty cloth. I could not see his mouth, but I could see it in his eyes. This man lived here. He hunted here. He killed here. And the mountains helped him hide everything. The nearest road was far away. The nearest ranger station might as well have been in another world. Out here, with no signal and no clear trail, the law felt like something people invented to feel safe. It did not exist in this hollow. Only he did. My battery is at 8% now. I am recording because I know I may not get another chance. I am not recording to call for help. Help cannot reach me here. Even if someone heard me scream, the sound would be swallowed by the fog and trees before it reached another human being. I want whoever finds this to know that these woods are not safe. Not all danger in the wilderness has claws or teeth. Sometimes it has hands. Sometimes it has a human face. Sometimes it lives far away from city lights and waits for people like me to make one bad choice. I moved when he was almost close enough to see me. I ran. I did not think. I just turned and pushed through the trees as hard as I could. Branches slapped my face and tore at my jacket. Thorns scratched my cheeks. My backpack caught on something, and I ripped it free without looking back. I could hear him behind me, but not the way I expected. He was not crashing through the woods. His steps were steady, calm, almost relaxed. That scared me more than if he had been sprinting. It sounded like he knew I would get tired before he did. I ran uphill until my lungs burned. The ground became steeper and rockier. My boots slipped on wet stone. Fog covered the slope so thickly that I could barely see more than a few feet ahead. I kept one hand out in front of me to stop myself from smashing into trees. My other hand held my phone so tightly my fingers hurt. Behind me, the footsteps continued. Steady, rhythmic, constant. I tried to change direction several times, but every turn seemed to lead to more symbols carved into trees. I saw them through the fog, dark cuts in pale bark. They appeared on my left, then my right, then ahead of me. It felt impossible. It felt like the whole forest had been marked by him, or for him. Then suddenly, the footsteps stopped. I kept running for a few more seconds before my body forced me to stop. I leaned against a rock, gasping so hard it felt like my chest would split open. The fog moved around me in slow waves. I listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. No scraping axe. For one terrible moment, I thought I had lost him. Then I heard humming. It came from above me. The sound drifted down through the rocks, soft and old, like some kind of folk tune. It was slow and broken, but the melody echoed through the mountain in a way that made it sound like more than one voice. It bounced between the stones and trees until it surrounded me. He was not behind me anymore. He was above me. That was when I understood. He had not been chasing me. He had been guiding me, herding me, pushing me exactly where he wanted me to go. I looked around and saw the land rising into a narrow, rocky slope on one side and dropping away into fog on the other. I tried to climb sideways, but the rock wall was too steep. I tried to go back down, but I heard movement below. I tried to push through a gap between two boulders, but it ended in a wall of stone. I was trapped. Then the fog shifted, and I saw the cliff. It was only a few steps behind me. The drop was hidden by darkness and mist, but I could feel the emptiness there. The air was colder at the edge. Small pebbles rolled past my boots and disappeared without a sound. I leaned just enough to look down, and my stomach turned. There was no bottom, just black. I turned back, and he was there. He came out of the fog like he had been made from it. He was calm, not tired, not even breathing hard. The axe hung at his side, and he wiped the blade with a piece of cloth like this was all normal to him. Like I was nothing more than another task he needed to finish before nightfall. He did not speak. That silence was worse than any threat. I backed away from him until my heel touched loose stone at the edge of the cliff. My whole body shook. I could feel the drop behind me and the man in front of me. He raised the axe slightly, not high enough to swing yet, just enough to show me what came next. I looked into his eyes and saw no anger there, no panic, no rush. He was enjoying the moment before the end. That was when I realized something that I cannot explain in any normal way. These mountains feel alive. I know that sounds insane, but out here, right now, it feels true. The trees, the fog, the rocks, the silence, those carved symbols, all of it feels connected. Like the place itself chooses people and pulls them in. Maybe the man is just part of it. Maybe he serves it. Maybe he has been here so long that the forest has turned him into something that is not fully human anymore. He stepped forward. I stumbled back and nearly went over. I grabbed at the rock wall beside me, and my phone slipped from my pocket. It bounced once, hit a stone, and dropped into a narrow crevice near the edge. I heard it crack, but the screen stayed on. I reached for it, but it had fallen too deep between the rocks. I could not pull it out. So I left it recording. If this is found, please listen to me. Please believe me. Do not let them say I got lost. Do not let them say it was an accident. There is a man out here, or something wearing the shape of a man, living in the unmarked places of these mountains. He watches the trails. He marks the trees. He waits for people who want silence, people who want isolation, people stupid enough to think the forest is peaceful just because it is quiet. He is close now. I can hear him breathing again, that same rough, broken breathing I heard when this all started. He is talking to himself too, but I cannot understand the words. It sounds like gibberish or a prayer or some old ritual he has done many times before. His voice is low and cracked. Sometimes he hums between the words. I think he has done this before. No, I know he has. Those shoes back at the trailer, those backpacks, those clothes. Those were people with families, people who came here for fresh air and mountain views and never came home, people whose last moments were probably just like mine, trapped in the fog with no signal, no help, and no way out. My battery is almost gone. He is raising the axe again. I do not want him to touch me. I do not want him to drag me back to that trailer. I do not want to become another backpack in his yard, another pair of shoes beside the fence, another missing person people talk about online for a few weeks before forgetting. The cliff is behind me. The dark is below me. He is in front of me. There is no way out. I think I am going to jump before he reaches me. At least that will be my choice. At least he will not get to decide everything. If you are hearing this, stay away from the unmarked trails in the Appalachians. Do not follow strange symbols carved into trees. Do not walk toward smoke where no campsite should be. Do not trust the silence. The forest is not empty. They are watching from between the trees. And they are waiting for the next visitor. The battery is dying now. Goodbye, Story 3. It all started on a Tuesday. I remember that because nothing important ever happened to me on Tuesdays. They were always the most normal days of the week. Monday had the tired feeling of starting over. Wednesday felt like the middle of a long road. Friday had a little bit of hope in it. But Tuesday was just Tuesday. Plain, boring, forgettable that morning, though. I woke up feeling like I had not slept at all. At first, I did not think much of it. My alarm went off, and I opened my eyes with this heavy, sick feeling behind them. My body felt weak, like I had been carrying something all night. My arms were sore. My legs felt full of sand. Even my fingers felt stiff when I reached over to turn my phone alarm off. The weird part was that I had gone to bed early. I was not up watching videos. I was not gaming. I was not talking to anyone. I had actually slept at a decent time for once. So when I woke up feeling dead tired, I just thought maybe I had slept too much. People always say too much sleep can make you feel worse, so I accepted that answer and tried to move on with my day. But the same thing happened the next morning. And then the morning after that. No matter what I did, I woke up exhausted. I started going to bed earlier and earlier. I turned off my phone an hour before sleep. I stopped drinking coffee after noon. I kept my room dark and quiet. I even tried sleeping with soft music in the background, thinking maybe silence was making my mind too active. None of it helped. Every morning, I woke up feeling like something had drained the life out of me. At work, people noticed. My manager asked if I was sick. A coworker told me I looked pale. Another one joked that I looked like I had been out drinking all night, but I had not touched anything. I laughed along with him because that was easier than explaining that I had no idea what was happening to me. By the second week, it got worse. I stopped waking up just tired. I woke up with headaches. My mouth was dry. My chest felt tight, and sometimes there was a strange burning deep in my stomach. Not like heartburn, not like hunger. It felt like heat trapped inside me, moving slowly, as if something warm was crawling around under my skin. I told myself it was stress. I told myself I was overthinking it. I told myself everyone gets tired sometimes. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. At night, I started feeling nervous before bed. That was new for me. I had never been scared of sleeping. Sleep was supposed to be the safe part of the day. You close your eyes and the world disappears for a few hours. But now, every time I looked at my bed, I felt like I was walking towards something I could not see. Still, I slept, because what else was I supposed to do? Then, I started trying things to force myself into deeper sleep. I took melatonin first, a small amount, then a little more. It made me fall asleep faster, but it did not fix the problem. I still woke up feeling ruined. Then I tried stronger stuff. Things I should not have taken without asking a doctor. I was desperate and stupid, and I just wanted one normal night. I tried pills that made my head feel cloudy. I tried cough syrup that knocked me out so hard I barely remembered lying down. But every morning, I still woke up. So damn tired, the tiredness became part of me. It sat on my shoulders. It followed me into the shower, into my car, into work, into every conversation. I stopped eating much because my stomach always felt strange. My parents thought I was just staying up too late. My younger brothers made jokes about me being lazy. I did not blame them. I did look lazy. I moved slow. I talked slow. I forgot things. But I was not lazy. I was scared. One night, after almost a month of this, I decided I was not going to sleep at all. It was a dumb idea, but at the time, it felt like the only thing left to try. If sleep was the problem, then I would stay awake and see what happened. I did not tell anyone. I just went to my room like normal, closed my door, turned off the light, and sat on my bed with my back against the wall. I kept my phone in my hand and watched the time. 11:15 p.m., 12:03 a.m., 12:48 a.m. The house was quiet. My parents were asleep in their room. My brothers were asleep down the hall. The air conditioner made a soft humming sound. Every once in a while, the house creaked the way houses do at night. I started to feel stupid. Maybe I really was just sick. Maybe I needed blood tests or vitamins or something. Maybe I was turning this into some big mystery because my brain was too tired to think straight. Then, at around 2 in the morning, I heard rustling. It was very faint at first. A soft movement somewhere outside my room. Not footsteps, not exactly. It sounded like someone dragging a bag across the carpet, then stopping, then dragging it again. I froze. The rustling came again. I held my breath and listened. Then I heard yelling. "Get off of me! Who are you? Get off!" The voice was loud, panicked, and full of fear. I shot upright so fast my head hit the wall behind me. "What the hell?" I whispered. My heart started beating hard. I looked at my bedroom door, waiting for someone to run past it, or for my parents to wake up. But the house stayed still. No lights turned on. No footsteps came from my parents' room. No one called out. The yelling stopped. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then I heard something else. Hissing. It was low and thin, like air leaking through a small hole. At first, I thought maybe it was the air conditioner, but it was not coming from the vent. It was coming from the hallway. It sounded alive, like a snake. My whole body went cold. I wanted to get up and check. I wanted to open my door just a little and look out, but I could not move. Fear pinned me to the bed. The hissing kept going, slow and steady, rising and falling like breathing. Then, everything went black. I do not remember lying down. I do not remember falling asleep. I do not remember anything after the hissing. I woke up the next day feeling worse than ever. So damn tired, I did not go to work that day. I could not. I called in sick and stayed in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling. My body felt heavy, but my mind would not rest. The memory of that scream kept playing again and again. Who had screamed? Why had nobody else heard it? Why did I black out after the hissing? The burning in my stomach was stronger now. It sat deep under my ribs, hot and sharp. Sometimes it moved up into my chest. Sometimes it spread into my back. I touched my skin, expecting it to feel warm, but it was normal. I thought about asking my parents if they had heard anything during the night, but I did not. I was afraid of their answer. If they said no, then that meant I was the only one who heard it. That meant maybe I was losing my mind. And if they said yes, then that meant something had really happened inside our house at 2 in the morning, and nobody had done anything about it. I decided I did not want to know. Besides, some part of me already understood the truth. They would not remember, none of them would. Only me. That night, I made a plan. I knew I could not just sit there and wait again. If something was happening while I slept, I needed proof. I needed to record it. I needed to know where I went in those missing hours, or what came into my room, or why I kept waking up feeling like something had taken pieces of me. So before bed, I changed into sweatpants and a hoodie. I slid my phone into my pocket and made sure it was recording audio. I turned the brightness all the way down so the screen would not light up the room. Then I lay in bed and pretended to sleep. My room was almost completely dark. Only the faint glow from my phone leaked through the fabric of my pocket. I kept one hand close to it, ready to grab it if I needed to. The time was 1:53 a.m. I stared at the ceiling and listened. The house was quiet again. For a while, nothing happened. I started to wonder if whatever had happened the night before would not happen again, because I was waiting for it. Maybe it knew. Maybe I had ruined it by watching. Then the hissing started. It came from the hallway again. Soft, slow, wet. This time, there was no screaming. I felt panic rise in my throat, but I forced myself to stay still. I remembered what had happened before, how the hissing had been the last thing I heard before everything went black. So I grabbed the bottom of my shirt and pulled it over my nose and mouth. I pressed the fabric tight against my face and held my breath as long as I could. The hissing got closer. It was outside my door now. I squeezed my eyes shut. The sound slipped under the door like smoke. My lungs started to burn. I wanted to breathe so badly my body began to shake, but I kept the shirt over my mouth. The hissing went on for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, it faded. I waited. Nothing. I let myself take one careful breath through the shirt. Then another. I thought I was safe. Then my bedroom door opened. No footsteps came in, no creak from the floor, just the slow movement of my door pushing inward. I kept my eyes barely open. At first, all I saw was darkness in the doorway. Then, something moved inside that darkness. A tall shape leaned into the room. Then another. They were too thin to be people. Their bodies bent in strange ways, like their bones were not in the right places. Before I could scream, 4 cold hands grabbed me. 2 hands took my arms. 2 hands took my legs. Their skin was freezing and rough, almost scaly. The fingers were long and strong. I tried to fight, but my body felt weak, like the hissing had already gotten inside me. A dry, choking sound came out of my mouth, but it was not loud enough to wake anyone. They lifted me from the bed like I weighed nothing. I felt my phone slide inside my pocket. For 1 second, I remembered it was there, and I thought maybe the recording would catch everything. Maybe I would finally have proof. They carried me out of my room. The hallway looked wrong. It was darker than it should have been, even with the night lights off. The walls seemed longer. The family photos looked faded and gray. I saw my parents' bedroom door open as we passed it. Then I saw them. My mom and dad were being carried too. Their eyes were closed. Their faces were empty and peaceful, like they were in deep sleep. Behind them, 2 more shapes carried my younger brothers. They were asleep as well, their heads hanging to the side, their mouths slightly open. I tried to call out to them. Nothing came out. The cold hands carried all of us through the front door and into the night. The air outside was freezing. I remember seeing the shape of our driveway. I remember seeing the dark outline of our neighbor's house. I remember thinking how impossible it was that no dog barked, no porch light turned on, no one saw anything. A van waited at the curb. It was old and dark, with no lights on inside. The back doors were already open. The shapes lifted us into it one by one. They laid us on the metal floor like bags of trash. My shoulder hit something hard, and pain shot down my arm. Then the doors slammed shut. The van started moving. That was when I realized something terrible. My phone was not in my pocket anymore. Oh no, I thought. I forgot my damn phone. It must have fallen out in my room or hallway. The one thing that could have proved I was not crazy was gone. The ride was long and rough. The van bounced over roads that felt broken and uneven. Sometimes it turned sharply, throwing my body against my father's legs or my brother's side. Nobody woke up. Nobody moved. I was the only one awake, trapped in the dark with my sleeping family, listening to the strange breathing of whatever sat in the front. There were no voices, no music, no radio, only that quiet hissing. After what felt like an hour, maybe more, the van stopped. The engine turned off. The doors opened. Cold air rushed in, carrying a smell so strong I almost gagged. It smelled like chemicals, sweat, old blood, and something rotten hidden under the floor. Two of the creatures reached in. They did not take me first. I wish they had. Because what I saw next was worse than anything I could have imagined. We were inside some kind of building, but it did not look like a hospital or a lab. It looked like an abandoned warehouse that someone had turned into a nightmare. Dim lights hung from the ceiling. Plastic sheets covered some of the walls. Metal tables stood in rows. Wires ran across the floor. There were buckets, tools, tubes, and needles everywhere. And there were people, hundreds of them. Some were hanging from metal hooks or straps attached to the ceiling. Some were tied to chairs. Some were lying on tables with their arms strapped down. Many were unconscious. Many were not. The ones who were awake were screaming. Some screamed words. Some screamed without words. Some begged for help. Some cried for their mothers. Some made sounds that no person should ever have to make. I saw a man hanging nearby with needles in both arms. His body shook so hard the metal chain above him rattled. A woman on a table tried to lift her head, but one of the creatures pushed her back down with one long hand. A boy who looked no older than 16 stared straight up at the ceiling with his mouth open, but no sound came out. It looked like a drug house, a hospital, and a slaughter room all mixed together. They were experimenting on people. And we were next. They took my father first. I wanted to close my eyes, but I could not. They hung him up with straps under his arms and around his wrists. His head rolled forward. He was still asleep. One of the creatures took a needle from a tray and pushed it into his arm. My father woke up screaming. The sound ripped through me. He tried to fight. He kicked and twisted, but the straps held him in place. The creatures just stood around him and watched. Their faces did not change. They did not look angry. They did not look excited. They looked curious, like scientists watching a rat in a cage. Then they took my mother. Then my brothers. I watched each of them wake up screaming after the needle went in. I watched their bodies shake. I watched their faces twist in pain. I wanted to help them, but I could not even move. One of the creatures held me down with one hand pressed against my chest. Then it was my turn. By then, I had learned one thing. They seemed to think we were asleep until we reacted. So when they lifted me, I let my body hang loose. I kept my eyes closed. I made my breathing slow. I pretended I was still unconscious, even though every part of me wanted to scream. They carried me to an empty spot and strapped me up. The straps were cold and tight. They cut into my wrists. My feet barely touched the floor. I could smell the chemical stink on the metal tray beside me. I heard the soft clink of glass. I heard liquid moving inside a tube. Then I felt the needle. It slid into my arm, cold and sharp. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the burning came. It started in my arm, right where the needle went in. Then it spread fast. It rushed up my shoulder, across my chest, down into my stomach, and through my legs. It felt like someone had poured gasoline inside my body and lit a match. My eyes flew open. I screamed. I could feel everything inside me. I do not know how else to explain it. I could feel my heart pumping. I could feel my lungs pulling in and pushing out air. I could feel my stomach twisting. I could feel my blood moving through my veins like boiling water. Every muscle in my body tightened. Every nerve caught fire. I screamed until my throat felt torn. I screamed until my voice broke. I screamed for my mother, for my father, for anyone. They did not care. They just watched. One of them leaned closer to me. That was the first time I saw its face clearly. It was not human. Its skin looked dry and cracked, almost like the skin of a lizard. The color was a dull gray-green in the bad light. Its mouth was too wide. Its lips were thin and dark. Its teeth were sharp and crooked, set at strange angles like they had grown without any order. But the eyes were the worst part. They were black, not dark brown, not shadowed, completely black, smooth and cold like wet stones. It watched me burn from the inside, and then it smiled. Another needle went in. This one made my skin burn. It felt like every inch of me had been pressed against a hot stove. My arms, my neck, my face, my back, even my eyelids. I tried to speak, but all that came out was another scream. Around me, other people were dying. I saw them bring in gurneys. I saw bodies being moved away under dirty sheets. Some were still twitching. Some were too still. The creatures moved quickly and calmly, like this was normal work for them. A man near me stopped screaming suddenly. His head dropped forward. One of the creatures touched his neck, waited for a moment, then made a soft clicking sound. Another creature came and unstrapped him. They put him on a gurney and rolled him away. No one cared. No one cried for him except the people who knew they might be next. My body kept burning. I do not know how long I hung there. Time stopped making sense. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like seconds. Sometimes I blacked out for a moment, then woke up, still screaming. Sometimes the pain faded just enough for me to hear my family somewhere nearby, and then it came back even stronger. At one point, the creature with the black eyes stood in front of me again. I stared at it. I do not know why. Maybe because I had nothing else left. Maybe because I wanted it to know I was awake. Maybe because if I looked away, I would lose my mind. So I stared into those cold black eyes. It stared back. The burning moved through my body like fire under my skin. My throat was raw. My arms were numb from the straps. My stomach felt like it was full of hot metal. Still, I stared. Then it smiled again. Its sharp, crooked teeth showed slowly, one by one. It leaned closer. The hissing started. Not from the room this time, from its mouth. The sound filled my head. It grew louder and louder until it covered the screams, the metal clinking, the crying, everything. The creature opened its mouth wider, and the hiss poured out like gas. I remembered what had happened in my room. I closed my eyes. I held my breath. I waited for the cold hands to grab me again. They did. This time, I did not fight. I could not. My body was too weak, too broken, too full of fire. They unstrapped me and carried me away. I heard my mother crying somewhere behind me. I heard my younger brother whisper my name. Then the hissing swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes again, I was in my bed. My room was dark. My blanket was pulled up to my chest. My door was closed. The house was quiet. For one beautiful second, I thought it had been a nightmare. Then I tried to move. Pain shot through my arms. I looked down and saw small red marks inside my elbow, right where the needle had gone in. There were dark bruises around my wrists. My throat felt raw, like I had been screaming for hours. And the burning was still there. Not as strong as before, but still deep inside me. I lay in bed until morning with my eyes open. When my mother called me for breakfast, her voice sounded normal. I walked into the kitchen slowly, expecting to see bruises on her wrists, too. I expected my father to look sick. I expected my brothers to remember. They did not. My mother asked why I looked so tired. My father read something on his phone while drinking coffee. My brothers argued over cereal. No one remembered the van. No one remembered the warehouse. No one remembered the needles or the screaming or the things with black eyes. Only me. I checked my phone later. It was on the floor beside my bed. The recording had stopped at 1:54 a.m. There was nothing on it except the sound of me breathing, then a faint hiss, then silence. I listened to that silence over and over until my hands started shaking. For the next week, they did not come back. At least, I do not think they did. But I still could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the warehouse. I saw the hanging bodies. I saw my father waking up screaming. I saw the creatures smiling at me with those sharp, crooked teeth. I started keeping the lights on at night. I pushed a chair under my bedroom door. I slept during the day when I could, but even then, sleep did not feel safe. I would wake up after only a few minutes, sweating and shaking, sure I had heard the hissing again. My parents thought I was having a mental breakdown. Maybe I was. But mental breakdowns do not leave needle marks. Mental breakdowns do not make your wrists bruise in the shape of straps. Mental breakdowns do not fill your room with a smell like chemicals at 2 in the morning. I tried to tell myself they were done with us. Maybe they had gotten whatever they wanted. Maybe the experiments were over. Maybe they had moved on to other houses, other families, other people who would wake up tired and never know why. But every night, around the same time, the house felt wrong. The air got colder. The shadows under my door looked darker. The silence became too quiet, and I would wait. It has been a week now. I have not slept more than a few minutes at a time. My eyes hurt. My body shakes. My stomach burns like there is a coal sitting inside it. Sometimes I hear my brothers laughing in the next room during the day, and I feel sick because I remember them screaming in that place. They do not remember. They might never remember. But I do. I remember all of it. Tonight feels different. It is 1:57 a.m. My room is dark, except for the weak light of my phone screen. I am writing this because I need someone to know. I need someone to understand that if I disappear. Or if my family wakes up tomorrow and says I never came home, it was not a dream. It was not stress. It was not too much sleep. The chair is under my door again. My window is locked. My phone is in my hand this time, not my pocket. I keep telling myself that nothing can get in, but I just heard something in the hallway. A soft sound. Low, slow, like a snake breathing under my door. The hissing is back. I think they came for me again. I think I am going to just G. Story 4 on April 17th, 1947. Something came to the small town of Clarksburg, Maryland. And after that night, the people who lived there were never the same again. Clarksburg was not a busy place back then. It was the kind of town where everybody knew each other, where families left their windows open in the summer, where children played outside until the sun went down, and where people believed they were safe because nothing truly terrible ever happened there. But that belief ended at the front door of Eugene and Carmela Parker. It was already dark when the knock came. Eugene and Carmela were at home, spending a quiet evening together, when they heard someone tapping at the door. At first, it did not sound dangerous. It was not a loud, angry knock. It was small and weak, the kind of knock a frightened child might make when they were too tired to shout for help. When Eugene opened the door, he found a young boy standing outside. The child looked scared and confused. He told the couple that he had gotten lost while walking home from the park. His clothes were dirty, and his voice was soft. He looked like any other child who had wandered too far from home. Eugene and Carmela immediately felt sorry for him. In a small town like Clarksburg, people helped each other. A lost child on the doorstep was not something they could ignore. They asked him where he lived, but the boy said he did not know the address. They asked him for his parents' names, but his answers were vague. Something about the situation felt strange, but not strange enough for them to shut the door. Carmela especially could not stand the thought of leaving a frightened child outside in the dark. So they let him into the house. The boy stepped inside quietly. He did not cry. He did not ask for food or water. He only stood there and looked around the room with eyes that seemed too still for a child. Eugene and Carmela did not notice it at first. They were too focused on doing the right thing. They took him into one of the rooms and told him to wait there while they called the police. They wanted an officer to come and help find the boy's parents. For a few minutes, everything seemed normal. The child stayed in the room, and Eugene went to the phone. Carmela stood nearby, worried but calm. Eugene explained the situation to the police. He told them that a lost boy had come to their door and that the boy could not remember where he lived. The officer on the other end began asking questions, trying to understand what had happened. Then, in the middle of the call, the police heard something that made the officer freeze. There was a terrible crash from inside the Parker home, like a door being ripped from its hinges. It was not the sound of a child opening a door. It was heavy, violent, and sudden. Right after that, Carmela screamed. Her scream was full of fear, the kind of fear that does not come from seeing a stranger or hearing a loud noise. It was the sound of someone seeing something impossible. The call ended seconds later. The police rushed to the Parker house as fast as they could. By the time they arrived, the house was silent. The front door was open, and the air inside felt wrong. Officers entered carefully, expecting maybe to find an intruder or some kind of robbery. Instead, they found Eugene and Carmela Parker dead inside their own home. The scene was worse than anyone could have imagined. Eugene had been attacked so badly that the officers could barely understand what had happened to him. His stomach had been torn open with a level of force that did not seem human. Carmela had been beaten so severely that her face was almost impossible to recognize. There was no sign of the child. There was no sign of anyone else. Whatever had entered their home had disappeared into the night. At first, the police tried to make sense of it in a normal way. Maybe the boy had been used as bait by a killer. Maybe a grown man had been hiding nearby. Maybe the child was not a child at all, but a small person with some kind of illness or disguise. These were the kinds of things people said because the truth was too hard to accept. Nobody wanted to believe that Eugene and Carmela had let something in that only looked like a child. 2 days later, the town learned that the Parker murders were not the end of it. A 7-year-old boy named James Miller was playing at the park. It was the same kind of day children in Clarksburg had always enjoyed. Parents watched from a distance, neighbors talked, and the children ran around without fear. James was seen near the edge of the park, talking to another boy. The other boy looked about his age. No one thought much of it. Children met other children all the time. But then, the other boy led James toward the nearby forest. At first, it looked like they were only playing. Maybe they were going to explore. Maybe they were chasing something. But within minutes, the mood changed. People in the area heard screams coming from the trees. They were sharp and desperate. Several townsfolk ran toward the forest, calling James's name as they pushed through the brush. They did not have to go very far before they found him. James Miller was lying on the ground, and he was already dead. His throat had been torn open. There were signs of a violent struggle, but there were no footprints that made sense, no clear sign of where the other boy had gone. The people who found James were horrified. Some of them cried. Others stood frozen, unable to understand how a child could be taken and killed so quickly in a place everyone thought was safe. After James's death, the town changed. Parents stopped letting their children play outside alone. Doors were locked before sunset. People looked twice at every child they did not recognize. The police searched the woods, questioned residents, and followed every lead they could find. But nothing helped. There was no normal suspect. There was no clear pattern except one terrifying detail. The dangers seemed to begin with a lost child. Then, on May 2nd, the town hermit, Vernon Burnett, came running into Clarksburg with a story no one wanted to believe. Vernon lived away from most people. He kept to himself and stayed near the forest with his dog, Burns. Most people in town thought he was strange, but they also knew he was not usually the type to make trouble. That day, Vernon came into town shaken, bleeding, and nearly out of his mind with fear. He told anyone who would listen that he had been attacked by a demon-like creature in the woods. According to Vernon, it started just like the other stories. He had been walking near his cabin when he saw a child in the forest. The child looked lost and afraid. Vernon asked what he was doing out there, and the child said he could not find his way home. Vernon may have been a lonely man, but he was not heartless. He believed he was helping a lost kid. He told the child to stay close and began looking around, trying to decide which way to take him. For only a second, Vernon turned his back. That was when everything changed. Vernon said he heard a cracking sound behind him, like bones shifting and breaking under skin. When he turned around, the child was gone. In its place stood something much taller than any man. It was around 8 feet tall, with long arms, sharp claws, and a mouth full of teeth that did not belong to anything human. Its body looked twisted, as if it had been forced into a shape it was never meant to have. Its eyes were not the eyes of a child anymore. They were hungry, cruel, and excited. The creature lunged at him. Vernon tried to run, but it was too fast. It slashed at his stomach, tearing through his shirt and cutting deep into his skin. He fell backward, certain he was going to die. Then his dog, Burns, attacked the creature. The dog bit down hard on one of the creature's legs, and for a moment, that was enough. The monster turned away from Vernon and focused on the dog instead. Vernon heard Burns yelp. He knew his dog was sacrificing himself to save him. As much as it destroyed him, Vernon ran. He ran through the trees, bleeding and terrified, until he reached town. But when he told people what happened, most of them did not believe him. They looked at the cuts on his stomach and said he must have done it to himself. They said grief over his dog had made him imagine things. Others thought he had been drinking or losing his mind after spending too much time alone in the woods. Vernon kept insisting that the creature had been real, but the town was not ready to accept that a monster was hunting them. 6 days later, they had no choice. On May 8th, a man named Frank Tanner called the police after seeing something in his backyard. He said there was a creature hiding behind his shed. He sounded terrified, not confused. He was not reporting a stray dog or a stranger. He kept saying that whatever was in his yard was not human. Officer Harry Tyler responded to the call. Tyler was a serious man and not easily scared. He had heard the rumors spreading through town, but like most officers, he trusted what he could see with his own eyes. He arrived at Tanner's house, stepped into the backyard, and moved toward the shed with his weapon ready. At first, everything was still. The yard was quiet. The shed stood near the back fence, its shadow stretching across the grass. Then, Tyler saw movement behind it. Something large shifted in the dark. The creature stepped out. Tyler fired 2 shots into it. Both bullets hit, but they did not seem to stop it. The creature did not fall. It did not even slow down. Instead, it rushed toward him with impossible speed. Frank Tanner watched from inside the house as Officer Tyler tried to back away, but there was no time. The creature attacked him with brutal force. It gouged out his eyes and then tore his head completely from his body. It was over in seconds. Tanner could only scream and hide as the creature climbed over the fence and vanished into the night. After Officer Tyler's death, the whole town fell into panic. Now it was not just frightened families and strange stories from the woods. A police officer had been killed while answering a call. He had shot the thing, and the bullets had not stopped it. That detail spread faster than anything else. People began whispering that the thing could not be killed, or that it was not from this world at all. The worst part was that the creature did not seem to kill because it needed to eat. It did not act like an animal hunting for food. It did not take bodies away to survive. It killed in cruel, creative ways, almost as if it enjoyed the fear. That idea made it even worse. A hungry animal could be understood. A murderer could sometimes be understood. But something that killed only because it liked killing was harder to face. On May 13th, 3 14-year-old boys decided they wanted to prove they were brave. Their parents had warned them not to go into the woods. Everyone had been warned. But young boys sometimes believe fear is something adults invent to control them. They packed what little they needed and slipped away without permission. planning to spend the night in the forest and show everyone they could survive. They built a small fire and tried to act like nothing was wrong. Maybe they laughed at first. Maybe they told each other ghost stories. Maybe they heard sounds in the trees and pretended not to be afraid. But sometime during the night, the creature found them. Their bodies were discovered the next day. One boy had been impaled on a tree branch. Another had been thrown into the remains of the fire they had made to protect themselves. The third had a tree branch forced down his throat. The scene was so horrifying that some of the men who found them refused to speak about it afterward. The boys had gone into the woods looking for adventure. They became another warning that nobody in Clarksburg could ignore. After that, people avoided the forest completely. The town felt abandoned, even during the day. Children stayed inside. Families slept in the same rooms. Men sat by their windows with guns, even though everyone knew guns had not helped Harry Tyler. Every strange sound outside caused panic. Every knock at the door made people hold their breath. Then, just as suddenly as the attacks had begun, the creature seemed to move on. Reports started coming from Frederick County. The same thing was said again and again. A lost child, a strange figure, screams in the night, and something moving through the trees. But in Frederick County, the creature was not alone. People there had already whispered for years about another monster, the snallygaster, a terrifying cryptid said to fly through the skies and attack the helpless. Some believed it was only folklore. Others believed it was something real that had hidden in the mountains and forests for generations. According to the stories that followed, the childlike entity and the snallygaster somehow crossed paths, and instead of fighting each other, they joined together. Together, they attacked a woman named Susan Thompson, and her 3-month-old baby, Mary, Susan, had been traveling through an isolated area when the two creatures appeared. The entity attacked Susan first. It tore at her face and ripped away her jaw, leaving her unable to scream properly for help. As Susan struggled, the snallygaster took the baby. People later said the creature carried little Mary away and ate her. That attack became one of the darkest stories connected to the creature. It was not only the violence that terrified people. It was the thought that two monsters could work together, as if they understood each other, as if one enjoyed the cruelty of the other. Then, the attack stopped. No one knew why. There was no final battle, no body, no proof that the creature had been destroyed. It simply disappeared. For years, the people who remembered the events of 1947 grew older, and many of them tried not to talk about it. Some claimed the stories had been exaggerated. Some said the murders had been done by a human killer, and that fear had turned him into a monster in people's memories. Others believed the truth was much worse. The creature had gone dormant, waiting for a reason to wake again. For 46 years, there was silence. Then, on July 28, 1993, something strange happened in Xenia, Ohio. Nobody understood why the creature would appear there. It had been connected to Maryland, to forests, old roads, small towns, and legends from the mountains. Ohio seemed random, but evil does not always follow a path people can understand. That day, the thing returned. Not in the woods, not at a lonely farmhouse, but in a bowling alley full of people. It began like chaos. Witnesses later said the attacker was extremely tall and moved in a way that did not seem natural. At first, some people thought it was a man wearing a costume or a disturbed person having a breakdown. But then, the killing started, and everyone realized they were trapped with something far worse. The creature moved through the bowling alley with terrifying speed. People screamed and ran, slipping on the polished floor, hiding behind lanes, counters, and tables. Some tried to fight back. Others froze where they stood. The sound of bowling pins crashing mixed with the sound of people shouting for help. What had been an ordinary place of laughter and family entertainment became a nightmare in seconds. By the time police arrived, 13 people were dead. Officers opened fire. This time, they aimed again and again at the creature's head. Bullets struck it repeatedly. The creature kept moving at first, but then it finally collapsed. Even after it fell, the officers continued firing because none of them wanted to take the chance that it would rise again. When the shooting stopped, the body on the floor was described as large, twisted, and wrong. But the public never heard that version. The government quickly took control of the scene. Witnesses were questioned, records were sealed, and the official story became simple. The bowling alley massacre had been committed by a very tall, mentally unstable man. Authorities said there was nothing supernatural about it. They said the killer had been human. They said panic and fear had made people imagine strange details. Most people believed them. After all, it was easier to believe in a disturbed man than in a creature that could wear the face of a lost child. It was easier to believe the police had shot a human attacker than to believe something from the old stories had survived for decades and returned to kill again. The world likes explanations that fit inside normal rules, even when those rules do not explain everything. But some people did not believe the official story. A few witnesses from the bowling alley insisted that the attacker was not human. They said its eyes were wrong. They said its body changed shape when it moved. They said no man could have taken that many shots and kept coming. Some of them later connected the massacre to the old Clarksburg stories from 1947, and when they compared the details, the similarities were hard to ignore. The lost child, the impossible strength, the love of killing, the way it vanished for years, the way people in power always tried to explain it away. To this day, the truth remains buried under rumors, old police reports, frightened memories, and official lies. Maybe the creature was killed in Ohio. Maybe the bullets finally ended whatever had been hiding behind that child's face. Or maybe it only fell because it wanted people to think it was dead. That is the most frightening part of the story. If the creature could disappear for 46 years once, it could do it again. It could be waiting somewhere far from Maryland, far from Ohio, far from any place connected to the old attacks. It could appear in another small town on another quiet evening, wearing the face of a lost child and knocking softly on someone's front door. And if someone opens that door, they may only see a scared little boy asking for help. They may never realize what they have invited inside until it is already too late. Story 5. You are standing in the middle of a field, but you have no idea how you got there. For a while, you do not move. You only stand there, breathing slowly, looking around like someone who has just woken up inside a dream. But it does not feel like a dream. The air feels real. The ground under your boots feels real. The sunlight on your face feels real. Still, something is wrong. Because you cannot remember anything before this moment. You do not know your name. You do not know where you came from. You do not even know if you have always been here or if your life has only just started right now, in this lonely field, beneath a sky too bright to be trusted. You try to search your mind for something, anything, a face, a voice, a memory of a house, a mother, a father, a friend. But there is nothing there. It is not like forgetting where you left your keys. It is deeper than that. It is like your whole past has been wiped clean, leaving only a blank space inside your head. You slowly turn in a circle. All around you are grain fields. They stretch in every direction, golden and still, as far as your eyes can see. And strangely, your eyes can see very far, too far. The land does not bend at the horizon the way it should. There is no curve to the earth. No hills, no roads, no trees, no barns, no power lines. Only endless grain, waving gently even though you cannot feel any wind. You tilt your head in confusion. Is that normal? Maybe it is. Maybe you simply do not remember what normal looks like. Maybe the world has always been this way, flat and endless, with no signs of life anywhere. You look down at yourself. You are wearing old brown boots, the kind that look like they have walked through mud, dust, and years of work. Your jeans are dirty and faded blue. Your flannel shirt is worn thin with small tears near the cuffs and collar. The clothes feel familiar on your body, but not familiar enough to give you comfort. They belong to you, but you cannot remember putting them on. You take a deep breath. The smell of almonds fills your nose. It is strong, but not unpleasant. In fact, for reasons you cannot explain, it makes you feel calm. It makes you feel like you have returned somewhere safe, somewhere warm, somewhere you used to belong. The thought is strange because you do not know what home is. You do not know if you have ever had one. But the smell still touches something deep inside you. You look around again, and this time you notice something in the distance. A house. It is far away, maybe a couple of miles across the field. It stands alone, small and old, like it has been waiting there for a very long time. You stare at it for a moment. There is nothing else to do. There is nowhere else to go. So, without thinking too much, you start walking toward it. The grain brushes against your legs as you move through it. The sky stays perfectly blue above you. No clouds pass by. No birds fly overhead. The whole world feels still, as if everything is paused except for you. You walk for what feels like an hour, maybe two. Time is hard to understand here. The house looks close, then far, then close again. But eventually, you reach it. It is an old house with faded paint and dark windows. The boards on the porch creak under your boots as you step closer. You look through one of the windows. A soft yellow light glows inside, dim and warm, like the light from an old lamp. In the room, you see a rocking chair moving slowly back and forth. But no one is sitting in it. The chair rocks gently, calmly, as if someone was there only a second ago and has just stepped away. The rest of the room looks empty. Too empty. You walk to the front door and knock politely. No answer. You wait a few seconds. Listening, nothing. You knock again, a little harder this time. Still nothing. You step back and look around. Behind you, the grain fields go on forever. Above you, the sky remains spotless and bright. The house is the only thing in this world that feels like it might hold an answer. So you open the door and walk inside. The first thing you notice is the sound under your feet. A wet, soft, squishing sound comes from the beige carpet each time you take a step. You look down. The carpet is damp, but you cannot see where the water came from. It makes the whole room smell old and heavy. The house smells like wet carpet, old furniture, dust, and medicine. It smells like an elderly person's home. The smell should bother you, but it does not. Instead, it gives you a strange feeling of nostalgia, even though you cannot remember having grandparents. You do not know if you ever had them. You do not know if anyone ever sat with you in a warm living room and told you stories from their younger days. But the idea feels nice. You look around the room. The inside of the house looks like it belongs in the 1970s. The walls are dark wood. A brown leather sofa sits against one wall, decorated with old flower-patterned pillows. There are thick curtains, dusty lamps, and small framed pictures that are too faded for you to understand. The room feels lived in, but at the same time, completely abandoned. You begin to explore. The first room leads into another room that looks almost the same. Then that room leads into another room that is nearly identical again. Dark wooden walls, brown sofa, flowered pillows, wet beige carpet, dim yellow light, rocking chair. Empty space. You move from room to room, and each one feels like a copy of the last. At first, you think you are walking in circles. But you are sure you are moving forward. Every doorway should lead somewhere new, yet the house keeps repeating itself, like a memory being played over and over, losing detail each time. After a while, you finally enter a different room. This one is empty. There is no sofa, no chair, no lamp, no framed pictures, only bare walls and a small crawl-space door near the floor. You stand there for a moment, staring at it. The little door feels important, though you do not know why. You kneel down and pull it open slightly. Inside is complete darkness. No light reaches into it. It looks too small for a person, but somehow you know you can fit. You glance out the window one more time. The endless grain fields are still there, quiet and impossible. You do not have much of a choice. You crawl inside. The space is narrow and dark. Your hands press against rough wood. Your knees drag over dusty boards. You hear your own breathing close around you. For a few minutes, there is nothing but darkness and the sound of your body moving forward. Then, your hand touches another small door in front of you. You push it open and crawl out. On the other side, everything is different. You stand up slowly and take a breath. The smell here is not old carpet or medicine. It is soap bubbles and burnt plastic, mixed with something sharp and clean. You look around and realize you are inside another house, but this one is not old. It looks like a typical suburban home from the early 2000s. The walls are light-colored. The floors are spotless. The furniture is simple and clean. Everything smells like dishwasher soap. There is no dust anywhere, no mess, no signs of life, but also no signs of age. It feels like a house prepared for a family that never arrived. In the living room, an old television is playing a cartoon. The colors flicker across the screen. The sound is low and soft, almost too quiet to hear. You stare at it, and for a second, something inside your head pulls toward the image. It feels familiar, painfully familiar. You know this cartoon. You know you do. It sits on the edge of memory, like a word on the tip of your tongue. You try harder to remember. A sharp pain spreads through your head. You wince and look away. The pain fades, but the memory is gone too. Maybe that is for the best. Maybe some things hurt because they are not supposed to be found. You keep walking through the house. Like the old house, it is empty. No people, No family photos, no shoes by the door, no toys left on the floor. It feels like a home made from an idea of a home, not a real one. You step outside. The first thing you notice is the grass. It is green, too green, perfectly green, like something from an advertisement. You crouch and touch it. The blades are stiff and smooth, plastic. You pull your hand back. The grass is fake, and when you press harder, you realize the ground beneath it is fake too. It is not soil. It is some kind of hard surface, covered with artificial grass. You walk to the road and look down the street. Every house looks the same as the one you just left. Same windows, same porch, same clean lawn, same mailbox. The neighborhood goes on forever in one perfectly straight line, stretching into the distance without changing. Around the neighborhood are smooth hills covered in the same fake grass. On top of one of the hills, you see a windmill. Its blades are turning slowly. But there is no wind. That is when a cold feeling moves through your chest. You walk to a mailbox and open it. Inside is a white envelope. You take it out and open it. Blank, no writing. No stamp, no name, nothing. You check another mailbox. Another blank letter. Then another, and another. After about a dozen mailboxes, you find something different. Inside one envelope is a photograph. It shows a man standing with his family. A woman, children, smiling faces. A normal family picture. You do not recognize any of them. Still, something makes you fold the photo carefully and put it in your pocket. You think about walking farther down the street, but the idea feels pointless. The houses do not change. The road does not bend. The sky does not move. So you sit down against a white picket fence and rest your head back. You sit there for hours. The sky never turns dark. Instead, it turns red. Not orange like sunset. Not pink like evening. Blood red. The whole world is suddenly washed in a deep red glow, and the fake houses look even more unreal than before. You stand up quickly. Maybe this is a sign that you should move on, or maybe it means nothing. Maybe not everything has meaning. Maybe not every story has a lesson. Maybe some things just happen because they happen. Still, the windmill is the only thing here that is different. So you start walking toward it. The artificial hills feel strange under your boots. They are too smooth and too soft in the wrong way. After a few minutes, you reach the windmill. Up close, it looks bigger than it did from the street. There is a door on its side. You open it. Inside is an elevator. Soft waiting room music plays from hidden speakers. The sound is boring and cheerful, the kind of music that is meant to calm people down, but only makes you feel more uneasy. There is only one button. You step inside and press it. The doors close. The elevator begins to move. It keeps moving for a long time. 10 minutes, 20, maybe 30. Then it stops suddenly. The doors open, and you step into an empty airport. The smell hits you first. Kerosene, recycled air, cheap fast food, old coffee, and cleaning. It is the smell of travel, waiting, delays, and tiring. For a moment, it makes you think of family vacation. Airport, suitcases, someone holding your hand, someone telling you not to wander too far. But the memory disappears before you can catch it. You look around. The airport is long and straight, suburban street. One side is made of huge windows that show the runways outside, planes sit there, but none of them move. No workers drive around them. No passengers board. No luggage carts pass by. It's sky outside is blue again, clear and empty. On the floor, moving walkers appear every now and then, but some work and some do not. On the other side of the hall is a gray marble wall. Every 10 meters, there is a flight monitor showing departures and gates. Most of the words on the screens are nonsense. The letters shift and change, forming shapes that almost look readable, then falling apart before your mind can understand. Only one flight. You start walking toward it. For hours, you wander through the air. You pass empty gates, closed food stands, silent shops, and rows of black leather chairs mill on. Sometimes you hear distant beeping. Sometimes you hear the faint sound of an announcement. But the words are too far away to understand. Nothing ever comes from it. At last, you reach the gate from the screen. You sit down. The chair is uncomfortable. The black synthetic leather sticks slightly to your clothes, as if someone spilled soda on it long ago and never cleaned it properly. You look up at the monitor. 4 hours until departure. You do not know where the plane is going. You do not know if you even want to go there, but it is the first clear direction you have seen. So you wait. Somewhere far away, a commercial plays. You can hear the happy music, but not the words. Your eyes grow heavy. You lean back against the sticky chair and close them. When you wake up, you will get on that plane. But when you open your eyes, you are not in the airport anymore. You are in a mall. Fluorescent lights hum above you, dim and tired. Their constant buzzing gives you a headache. The mall is empty. Store shutters are down. Benches sit in the middle of wide walkways. Fake plants stand in clean pots. The air smells stale, like old air conditioning and forgotten food courts. You stand up slowly, disappointed but not surprised. Will you ever find meaning here?